Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome folks to the Hungry Gamers, back with another mini review, and today we are talking about Kinfire Chronicles now that I have completed the entire campaign. And this is something that I want to start doing as I slowly finish campaigns I've been working on for quite some time. And the next one I'm going to finish will probably Tales from the Red Dragon Inn, maybe Madara Act 1, I don't know. It's rare that I do it because they take a long time and I get a bunch of them and I kind of go back and forth, and there's so many that I'm playing. But I just recently finished Kinfire Chronicles after, I don't know, maybe 18 months. And I was actually recording the whole thing on the channel, and then things came up and I had like 4 months that I wasn't able to play, wasn't able to record, and nobody complained and said, where's the next episode? So I said, okay, I'm just going to finish because I really want to finish. And it's so much faster if I'm not recording and then editing and putting it out and waiting for people to give me their thoughts on things, whatever. But now that I'm finished and the reprint is kind of coming, it's on its way with some changes, I wanted to kind of revisit it and talk about it. And overall, I really enjoyed it. So if you're not familiar, this is an adventure, dungeon crawl-ish style game, except the exploration happens through decks of cards that you're going to kind of go through. It gives you story, it gives you choices. You're going to have to flip over your cards out of your deck to try to avoid bad things from happening. As I said, you're making choices, and it's going to kind of spiral because in these story moments, you're going to get different memories, and sometimes you'll do a scenario and it'll say, if you have memory 4B, go to this card instead. And so that's kind of your delving. And then each one's going to wind up with some kind of confrontation that you're going to have to deal with, and that's in an adventure book. So each map is just one single page, and it's kind of like a tactical skirmish map, and you're going to fight something. And the core mechanics are you're playing cards out of your hand, and then other players around the table can then play cards out of their hand that are boosts if the color match. If I play a red card, someone can play a red boost. It might be a healing card, it might be a extra damage card, it might let me draw or discard a card, it might let me move, things like that. And you're battling against these bosses going through and trying to win. However, they also have abilities that the bad guys are going to play. And the way this is done is you're drawing chits out of a bag, these nice chunky little plastic, not quite poker chip type things, and they have numbers on them. The numbers are going to correlate to one of the bad guys and their specific ability. So you can look at what's out there, and you can look at what's been played already, and you can look at what might happen and kind of plan what you're doing based around what they are likely to have happen. And there's some mitigation here and there, and eventually after 4 either darkness tiles or heart tiles, chits I should say, are drawn, then you reshuffle the bag and you kind of go again. And either you succeed or you fail. If you fail forward, but something's going to happen, you're not going to get as many benefits, and so on. And there are 21 different scenarios, though the core gameplay arc is 15 scenarios. So there's 6 that are kind of side quests that you may or may not do. Now, I have finished. I played through the first 2 or 3 scenarios with just 2 characters, and then once I really felt like I had a handle on the game, I added a 3rd character, then played the rest of the way through. And I wound up doing a total of 18, I think, of the 21 scenarios. I didn't unlock some of the side quests just because of the choices that I happened to make, and I didn't see them, whatever. But so I've played through the whole thing, and what you've been seeing up there are just some of the gameplay footage from some of the games that I did. So with all that said, now that I am done, what did I like about this game? I really, really enjoyed the story. And for a game that doesn't have a ton of text, right? This isn't Tales from the Red Dragon Inn. This isn't Madara. This isn't Oathsworn. This isn't Familiar Tales that just has a lot of really good text. It's very good. There are small snippets of text, but the way the story decks work as you're going through those, you feel like you're making real choices often. And it's very, very good in the sense that the world gets developed. You understand kind of what's happening in this world with this darkness that's kind of going on, and it all really does work well. So it kept me engaged and kept me wanting to go back. Likewise, the characters are very engaging. And that's both the NPC characters that you're going to meet, but the characters that you can play. As you go through, you open up new packs of cards. It gives you bits of story. You get bits of story based on the fluff that's on the action cards that you're playing. And it really, really makes me want to play different characters. But also, all of the characters play so very differently. And even as you're unlocking cards that anybody can have, you're like, no. This has to go to Valora because that's my range character, and now she has a spell that's going to do this thing. It is really, really, really well done. The differentiation of the characters, as well as the differentiation of the different scenarios. And I don't just mean when you're fighting. I mean the things that are happening around the scenarios. And I'm going to be vague here. But for example, there is a ship combat. And there are things that come out that, as you're pulling the chits out of the bag, it says the ship now does this. And you have to manage that as well. There's a really cool exploration dungeon thing that you're going to go through. You're moving through it, and you have to... This is not really a spoiler. I'm not telling you where it is, and it tells you what happens. But you have to look at the picture and figure out what's important before you start going through the cards. And these differences happen regularly enough that it keeps the game really interesting. You are always on your toes. You don't know what's going to happen. The last thing I'm going to call out that I really enjoyed, because as you can tell, I enjoyed the whole game. I played the whole thing. But the last thing I'm going to call out is, overall, it's a really nice production. The art, I really like the art. All of the bits and pieces that you're pulling out, the standees that you get, are just lovely. Even down to it has this box that as you're spending these certain tokens, you're dropping them into the void. The void is a box with a little piggy bank little thing on the top. And it just is so very clever. The way that each scenario box, you open it up, you pull it out, and there's the story right there, and you go through, and then it says, now you punch out this thing off this little punch board in this box. Awesome. Just awesome. Great art. Great story. The little thing I don't want to spoil that's going to happen as you go through is just great. And the way that it introduces different aspects of the game with each different box that you open is spectacular. It's a very easy game to learn, jump right in. You just have to trust it, which is maybe a hard thing, which will be kind of my transition into my quibbles with the game. You got to trust the game. You open box 1, you have like 3 or 4 pages of the getting started guide you're going to read, and then you open box 1 and you go. And then you open box 2 and it adds a little bit. And you just have to trust it. And that might be hard for some people, so that brings me to my quibbles with the game. There is no rule book. There's a little tiny get started guide, everything you have to just jump in and go. I think it's great. You might not like that. I will also point out as much as I like the production of the game, it has dials that are tens and singles on each dial that you're turning to kind of track health, and they're loose. That's all there is to say. That's all I can say about it. You put them together, and they're loose. They just spin way too easily. I suspect that's been fixed in the second printing, but there you go. You have that. Also, I'll say, there's really no good way to save what you've done in the game if you're going to take a break. Now, what scenarios you've done, that's easy. You can just turn them around and put them facing the other way. It's got this really beautiful picture that it builds. So it's easy to track what scenario you're on. But when you're doing the town phase that you get to do, is a huge deck of cards that you're kind of going through. There's no real easy way to save it. Yes, you have things where we've unlocked this, or you put this in this location, but it's just a big old stack of cards as you're going through. They get smaller later on. But there's just not a good way to save your progress if you're going to take a break. So when I came back to this after like 4 months, I was like, I have no idea what I've done in this town. I'm just going to jump in and we'll see what happens. So there's that. Next thing I'll say is there's no mechanic for swapping characters. Ostensibly, all 6 of the heroes are traveling together. But you play the ones you play, and the way the progression works in the game, it makes it to where it's just not practical to bring in a different character. So that means, now that I've finished, if I want to experience the other three characters, which I really kind of do, I gotta play the whole thing again. And for me, as someone that reviews lots of games, has a whole bunch of campaign games, that's not going to happen. So now I feel like I've missed out on three of these characters. But if I could have just been kind of swapping them in and out every so often, oh my gosh, that would have been amazing. If I could have kind of looked at where they're going, it's like, oh, we're going to this lighthouse. Well, I want to take the little nimble rogue and the nimble archer, and that would have been so cool if I could have done that, but but it's just the game does not allow for that, and that's kind of a bummer. And then the only real big quibble that I have, and I think this is the most important thing for anybody who's interested in playing this game to listen to and register, is the initiative system. One, I like it a lot. It makes the game exciting. You don't know what's going to happen. However, if you're not playing solo like I did, or at two players where you're each controlling two characters, it's not always fun. Because the way it works, there are definitely times when a character does not act, sometimes at all, for an entire encounter. And that, when I mentioned this when I was doing my review after playing like 4 games, I thought, well, maybe it's a fluke. It's not a fluke. It happened multiple times. In fact, the last week or so, I played like the last 7 scenarios or something, or 6 scenarios, a couple of side quests, whatever. It happened several times to where one of the 3 characters I had activated maybe once. And thematically, I can see that, right? It's like you're charging out and like, their foot gets stuck in the grate and they're trying to pull their foot out and then suddenly they're ready to go and the battle's over. But if I was playing 3 players and one of us was that character, that sucks. Majorly sucks. Now, I was playing solo, so it was even more exciting because I'm like, oh my gosh, can I please pull Valora so she can shoot the guy? It wasn't, or it was. It's very exciting at solo or playing multiple characters. A definite detractor if you are playing in a group of 4. In fact, I would go so far to say that I would only play this game at 1 or 2 players. I would not play it at 3 players, and I definitely wouldn't play it at 4 players for anything other than a one-off. But there you have it, folks. That is Kinfire Chronicles. Again, this might be like, well, I've made a bazillion videos about it. I really enjoyed it. And it's something that I have since sent on to actually another content creator who really wanted to play it. But I really had a good time with it. And this is a game that I would never, ever, ever say, no, I'm not going to at least sit down and play with you. Even at 4 players, I would sit down and play once because I'd be like, okay, I know I might not do anything this time. But I would absolutely do another campaign if somebody wanted to. At 2 players, I could play some of the characters I didn't get to play. That would be great. And I just think for what I think is the first game from this studio, is an incredible accomplishment and an amazing success. And I think it's one that if you are more into the Euro side of dungeon crawls, because it is very much card play. There's some there's a lot of randomness with the initiative, but the card play leans a little more Euro. Then this is one that you should really check out. I think the world building is spectacular. I think the art is spectacular. Overall, the production's really good. And I didn't even mention, it's a lightning fast setup and teardown for a dungeon crawl game. But there you have it, folks. That is officially my final video on Kinfire Chronicles. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.